This is the Bluegame BG72, a 72-foot motor yacht, but not as you know it. And in the mad rush of manufacturers trying to make the very most out of this area by the waterline, well, Bluegame has really taken it to extremes. Let's have a look around. So obviously this area here is the main attraction, and the key thing to understand about Sanlorenzo, Bluegame, who are a subsidiary of Sanlorenzo, is that you start with a blank sheet of paper. You sit down with the designers. Obviously there's a structure in place in terms of the build of the boat, but what you actually have on deck and in the interior, pretty much completely up for grabs. So this starts up as an open space where you can keep your water toys. You have your tender here, sea bobs, jet skis, you can put them into the water with a crane, or you have this amazing transformer. So this works, as you can see it now, this is like your passerelle, great big passerelle, so you can get up onto the dock, but it also goes at this angle down into the water, so it becomes your passageway down into the sea. You can have it completely level as well, which extends this deck space out even further. And you can keep a tender on there. That's got a 500 kilogram capacity, so you can also launch the tender off there. And if you want furniture in this space, you can have it. You can put sunbeds. I mean, it really is completely up for grabs. This owner, for example, doesn't have the barbecue up on deck. He's got the barbecue here. And this deck space here, the way it's organised, brings the rather obvious question of where the engines are. Well, they are beneath my feet, and you can see there's a quick inspection hatch here, but this larger hatch also opens at the touch of a button, so you have really good access to the engine if you need to do more involved work, and we'll have a proper look at them later on. But then you're met by these sliding glass doors here, and where that leads to is the main saloon. So you step down off your aft deck here into your saloon, which is at water level, and unfortunately, because we're here inside a marina, you're not getting the full effect. So you'd have these blinds up, and when you're out in the water, you'd be here right at water level with the sun deck out behind you. And you can also have this as the master cabin. Quite an indulgent layout, because it means that all of this space is all cabin, but what a special place to wake up straight out of bed onto the deck into the water. Would be pretty amazing. But this is your saloon, and it's super stylish. Again, this is completely up for grabs in terms of furniture, colours. This one's quite dark, you could have it much lighter, and it's all completely subjective. You have the galley over on this side. There's a crew cabin on this boat, but that's actually tucked right forward on the bow. A lot of these boats will be owner run, but they might want some help now and then, so they may have crew on board. And that means the accommodation is further forward on this deck. And in comparison to the aft end of the lower deck, further forward here where the accommodation is actually a bit more formulaic. So to starboard here, you have one of the two twin guest cabins. They're pretty much identical apart from this one's ensuite and the other one is ensuite, but that has access for the day heads. But you can see, you know, decent amount of headroom in here, nice big window, two good sized berths and some storage here as well. And as I said, it's got a private bathroom. If we head further forward, this is where you have the other twin cabin. It's ensuite, which also has access for day heads, as I said. There's a step up here. And then if you don't have the master cabin aft as an option, this is where your master cabin is, right forward here in the bow. It's a lovely cabin, completely flat floor. You know, I'm 6'1", plenty of headroom overhead, and the finish is lovely. It is quite a dark decor on this boat, as I said, but the walnut is really lovely. Properly high quality. It feels a quality product, this boat, and it should do because it's an expensive one. And this cabin of course has an ensuite, but it's worth having a bit of a closer look at because it is a very nice one. Got this little bureau here with the stool, that works nicely. And then you're into the ensuite, twin sinks and taps are really lovely, classy stuff. Corian here, twin sinks is a nice setup, and then obviously a big separate shower cubicle with a rain shower head overhead. Now it's not so important on this layout, but when you have the master cabin aft, you need a way for your guests to get to their cabins without having to go through your cabin, hence why you have this companionway here, but this also leads up to the helm station. So this is the only helm position on board, and it's a really commanding one. You're in the middle of the boat, you're quite a long way forward as well. So if you're in a big sea, you'd have a fantastic view of the wave pattern, and it feels really proper, you know, high back seat here, nice stainless steel wheel with sort of rubber on the back, so you've got a great grip. It's even got a footrest, which for a boat of this size you think they wouldn't bother with, but it does make the position very comfortable, and you really feel like you're in the action. And this is a 30 knot boat. It's got IPS 1200 or IPS 1350, so it will get a bit of a shift on. You have all of your controls here, obviously through these three Garmin screens, and you have everything at your fingertips here. Navigation, of course, but but you also have this boat management system, so you have control of everything from the air conditioning to your AC, DC services, lighting, everything is here under your fingers. You can control it all from the helm station. Really, really nice, proper business-like helm station on this boat. You can close this off from the aft deck. There's also a sunroof overhead. One of these, bit of a noisy one, but you get the idea. Those slats open right up and it just means you can get some ventilation and a bit of sunlight in here on a nice day. And it links effortlessly with this raised aft deck. And this is like your main social living area. Really, really comfortable. This clearly is the wet bar, but as I said, this particular customer's got his barbecue down there. You would have the barbecue up here ordinarily, but you've got sink, fridge, ice maker, everything you need to serve people out here. And it's a really lovely area to move about in. You've got the sun pads here, you've got your seating, this massive table which actually opens up to double the width. It's absolutely huge. So you're going to eat here probably lunch, dinner under a bit of shelter from this hardtop, and it's elevated. You're away from the quayside, so even if you're in a marina, it's nice and private, works really well. And it's completely flat all the way forward. So from here, I can really easily get right up to the foredeck. Big side decks. And then this is another outdoor living space. And a really nice one, really comfortable. Obviously you've got a dinette as well. You have a canopy over here as well, so you have a bit of shade. If you're here in the middle of the day in the Mediterranean, it would be pretty warm, so you would want a bit of shelter, but this works really nice, especially if you're moored stern to, like we are now. You're away from the quayside, you're away from other people sitting in their cockpit, up here a bit more private, and when the sun's gone in, it would be absolutely lovely. And this incidentally is how you get to the crew cabin. You lift up this cushion here, there's a hatch, and you go down a ladder. There's 2 berths down there and a bathroom, of course, and the crew are tucked down there. And then this is where you find your anchor locker, and through here is where you actually have access to your front cleats. These are big, heavy mouldings. You've got a cleats here, you've got a winch for tensioning those lines. It's a through hull anchor setup, and all of that is contained in this hatch below my feet. However, if it's sunbathing space you're after, there's only one place to be on this boat, and that's up here. And this is just pure, unadulterated sunbathing space. No helm up here, nothing to serve you drinks. This is just a place to lie down and catch the sun. There may not be another helm station on this boat, but there is another place to control the boat from, specifically when you're coming alongside or mooring stern to. So here you've obviously got your IPS joystick, you've got your proportional bow thruster, and you're here with a great view up to the bow, obviously a very good view of the stern, and also if you're coming alongside to starboard, it's perfect. You can really easily see your proximity to the pontoon. Now I said we come back to the engines, and I will show you how you access them because it's quite interesting on this boat. So if you just need to poke your head in and check everything's okay at sea, then you've got this hatch that you can access really easily. Lift that up, make sure nothing's gone wrong, down it goes again. But if you need proper access, because obviously headroom isn't great down there because it's quite a low deck, then the entire thing lifts up. So if you need to do more involved work, or God forbid need to take an engine or a pod out, this is the way you do it. Not only does it give you limitless headroom, but plenty of ventilation as well, because it will get warm down there. I won't put it all the way up, but there you go. Now you can see how good the access is. These are the IPS 1350s, the largest option. You can have IPS 1200, it's the same size block. I don't imagine anyone will pick that smaller engine option, but you've got superb access, not only to them, but to the pods, which can be an issue sometimes, getting to the pods. Generators down here as well, of course, it's just tucked down here to port. The Seakeeper is actually forward of that bulkhead, and you access that through a hatch in the saloon. But for your engine stuff and ancillaries, this is access, and it's really very good. I know what you're thinking, that's a lovely tour, Jack, but what's it like to drive? Well, I'd love to tell you, but right now I can't, because unfortunately it's too rough for us to get out of the river where Sanlorenzo launched their boats. However, in a few seconds I'm going to cut to the Cannes Boat Show, where I'm going to sea trial this boat, I'll have my GoPro, and hopefully we'll be out to sea. And as promised, here we are in Cannes in absolutely perfect conditions. And what strikes you when you take the wheel of this thing out at sea is just how quiet and serene progress is. As you go up through the rev range, it doesn't lift up at all, there's no rise of the bow, it just stays absolutely tabletop flat, and you just see the numbers ticking up on the speedo, and today we reached a top speed of 31 knots, and that's with the larger IPS 1350, so that's 1,000 horsepower per side. And that means that with a 4,000 litre fuel capacity at 8 knots, you've got a range of about 1,400 miles. And even at fast cruising speed, 22 knots, the range is in the region of 350 miles. So you have a really good wide cruising band. You can travel whatever speed you want to do depending on the style of cruising you're doing. But right now, we're 20 knots on the nose. It's so quiet. We've got the doors open, which means it's a little bit noisier, but when we did our sound readings, even at full speed, it didn't creep above 70 decibels. And of course, because you've got IPS pods, the steering is really light. I mean, this is a big boat, 70 odd feet, and it's really easy to handle from the helm. The steering is lovely and light, and actually it reacts to the helm really nicely considering how big it is. Of course, this is going to pretty much live on autopilot, this boat, but it's nice to know that if you do need to swerve or avoid an obstacle, then it is nice and agile from the helm. And I love this driving position as well. You're quite a long way forward, so you've got a really good clear view of the sea and the wave pattern, and it means that if you're in really rough sea, you can pick your way through it nicely. And you've got a lovely commanding position here. The helm is upright, everything is close to you, the seat is really supportive, and you've got a footrest. So if you want to stand or sit, no matter what size skipper you are really, you should be nice and comfortable. So yes, overwhelming thing for me is just how comfortable this thing is to cruise on, and that really is what it's designed for. It's a bit of a go anywhere boat, this. With that enormous range, you really can cover some distance. But that said, with IPS, it's also manageable if you want to be owner run. You don't necessarily have to rely on crew. This is a boat that you probably have to spend some real time with to understand whether this unique layout really works. But what I think is quite interesting is that on top of how the configuration works in terms of living on it, the fact that you've got the IPS engine so far back in the hull and insulated from not only where you drive from but also where you're going to be socialising up here on this main deck means it is so quiet on the move. And if you just want to slow down and tick along at 8 knots, you've got the stabilisers on, it's incredibly stable anyway. It means that you can use the whole boat when you're moving along, and I think that's really attractive to a lot of owners, and that if it's really nice weather, you're not in a hurry, well, why not make the most of the deck spaces while the boat's actually on the move? So it's hard to come to a definitive conclusion about whether this new layout is better than a traditional sports cruiser or traditional flybridge, because it sort of combines a bit of everything. But it certainly feels unique, luxurious, and if you want true connection to the water, well, there's no place better to be than on this amazing aft deck. Heading into our berth here at the show, it's actually quite a tight little space, this. Interestingly, the skipper has started at the inside helm. He's got the IPS joystick in there, obviously. But there is this wing station down here, which I wonder if he'll switch on to when we get a bit closer to the pontoon. You see, as we get a bit closer, I mentioned this in the tour, but this is when this wing station really comes into its own. So you see he has full control. We've got the joystick here, got the thruster, engine on and off button as well.
Luca, sono libero, prua. Eh?
And a really good view of the aft end of the boat. See, from that position, obviously he can see aft really well, but can also glance forward and pretty much see the extremes of the bow as well. Thank you very much for watching our tour and sea trial of the Bluegame BG72. If you enjoyed it, please give the video a like and be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.